Sarah, if you know you're ready, we can throw you up on the screen with us. So
You will also be on camera. We want to see you.
yep. This is risky experimental design. We have two variables going on here. We've decided to make this a hybrid panel. So we're integrating Sarah Glassmeyer into it. Oh wait, what was my second one? I've already lost my train of thought on this.
Also sharing screens while we're going through Zoom.
Yeah, we're flying by the seat of France. Oh, and we're trying to make it really short.
That too.
So this is going to be a 30-minute lightning panel. And I'm going to introduce myself fast. You're going to introduce yourself in a couple sentences. Sarah, I hope you'll be able to show your face here on our screen and introduce yourself in a few seconds. And then we'll giddy up and through this. And if you have questions, we'll probably end up having to take them at the reception. But that'll have to be okay. So I'm Sam Glover. I work at the Suffolk Lit Lab. I started a company called Lawyerist, which some of you may have heard of, some of you may not have. It was a survival guide for solo and small firm lawyers. We organized a conference called TBD Law, which is like a nexus for a bunch of people in the room, which is kind of a fun thing to be reminded of every time I go to a conference. And some of the law students here are using a book I helped write, the Small Firm Roadmap. And now I work with Quentin and David trying to spread the document assembly line. We help help courts, legal aid organizations, and students build access to justice tools using open source software, online guided interviews, e-filing, that sort of thing. That's me.
Good.
Go.
Damien Riehl, I've been a lawyer since 2002, litigated for about 15 years. These days, my day job is with vLex. My playground is a billion legal documents, cases, statutes, regulations, motions, briefs, pleadings. I do data science on them and then run large language models across them to be able to build cool things. I worked for TR for a while. My hat that I'm wearing today is with my hat as for the last 5 years, I helped lead the nonprofit called SALLY, which is a legal data standard that is free and open source, MIT licensed, that is collecting everything that matters to the law. Areas of law and causes of action and other things. And along with Sarah, who has provided a lot of input, we've pulled from some of the biggest law firms in the world and some of the biggest corporations in the world to build this taxonomy. Sarah.
Hey, hope you can hear me. My name is Sarah Glassmeyer. I am the Director of Data Curation for LegalTech Hub. I am a law librarian by training, and I basically spend my days thinking about legal data, legal taxonomies, how it all fits together, and how to make information created by the legal world more findable.
Awesome.
And I should say that we first met in Minneapolis in 2009 when I said, you're a lawyer that's building cool tech things and I want to get to know you. And I'm pretty sure you thought I was an axe murderer when I called you coffee.
I thought you were an axe murderer, but maybe. I think Sarah did when I ambushed her at the Legal Information Institute in like upstate New York, I don't know, 15 years ago.
and when we introduce Sarah, we should say the Sarah Glassmeyer. She is a legend in this area.
Yeah, for sure.
Hello.
Oh, I wish I'd worn my Metallica Minnesota shirt.
I know, it's like, guys, I have to have a camera. I wore this shirt for everything.
Awesome. Sarah, maybe you can kick us off. How is law data and where does law data live?
Okay, so I'll put it in Boston terms. So you know, America runs on Duncan. Law runs on data. Data is everywhere within law. And I know, like, you kind of when you first start thinking of it, you think of data as numbers on a spreadsheet, but it's so much more than that. Primary law, so case law, statutes, regulations, all of that is data, but it's also work product created by lawyers and members of the legal industry. So contracts and court opinions and all sorts of like judicial analytics. So how courts rule on things. And then there's also ancillary issues, usually connected to the business of law. So how many lawyers in our firm speak French, or lawyer billing? What did a lawyer work on? And like for what matter? And how long did they do it? All of that is various data. So I always say law, we don't make widgets, we make content or knowledge or data. And it's kind of a continuation. It's data, information, knowledge, wisdom. All of that is made and used by lawyers. That's our widget. Information, data, content, that kind of stuff. As for where it lives, kind of what Jack alluded to in the previous session. So for primary law, there is no centralized area for it. So even on a state-by-state basis. So I live in Indiana. If I want Indiana law, I can go to various court websites to get it, or the Secretary of State is usually where regulations live. And then as far as legislative materials, it's usually their website. And not all these websites, especially for primary law, are owned by the government. Sometimes commercial publishers, such as Lexis, will make a website and put that information on the website. So it's not owned by, the host isn't owned by the government, it's owned by a commercial publisher. As for internal data, it's piles of crap all over law firms and organizations everywhere. Hopefully it's in a DMS well organized, but Damon can talk more about that. But usually it's just squirreled away in various places around a law firm or a legal department.
Before I hand it off to Damien to talk about that, quick tomato poll. Show of hands. Data or data? Data.
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 Data. All right. Well, I'm in the minority with the data folks. So, yeah. So tell us, Damien, how is that stuff structured and sorted, and like give us some vocabulary, but also some help.
Sure. So vocabulary is, everything is an area of law. So for example, an area of law is intellectual property law. And so here is the intellectual property law. And then an area type of intellectual property law is patent law. Each of these is a SALI tag. But you might say, where's patent litigation versus patent prosecution? And that is each a service that a lawyer provides. Because on day one, the client might say, well, should I get a patent? Then yes, let's go ahead and file the patent, license the patent, litigate the patent, deal with patent assets in bankruptcy. So tag number one is patent law. Tag number two is the service I provide. And then you have to say, okay, well, what types of forum is this going to be in? Is this a state court or a federal court? And so here's a dispute venue. Here are all the US courts, and here are all the US state and federal courts. And if I want to go to New York, for example, and I want to say, okay, which borough are we going to be arguing in? Here are all the New York City courts here. Each one of these things is a SALI tag. And you can see here that you can see that the patent litigation, patent law, has this unique identifier. And that unique identifier is what's being used by all of these tiny corporations here, like Thomson Reuters, LexisNexis, Bloomberg, NetDocuments, iManage, DLA Piper, White & Case, and some of the biggest law firms in the world, all of which are coalescing around this unique identifier to say, if I want to be able to say, here are all the patent matters, send this unique identifier, and we'll send you all the patent matters. So everything that matters, for example, in this trademark case that's right here, you can see here, complaint is a SALI tag. Answer is a SALI tag. Those pleadings are in green. Motion for summary judgment is a SALI tag. And then an order on the motion is a SALI tag. Also, a SALI tag is granted, denied, partially granted. You can see here this beautiful SALI logo on the top side. Each one of these has a unique identifier that's being used by all of these tiny companies that I just showed you a minute ago. So the idea with the standard is all of this stuff is free and open source. No one owns copyright in patent law. Nobody owns a copyright in motion for summary judgment. So what we've collected is 18,000 tags, everything that matters to the substance of law and to the business of law, and made them all free and open source under the MIT license. So you can go to GitHub, download it all, and be able to do cool things with it.
Sarah, anybody who's ever been near a law library is going, but wait, hasn't Thomson Reuters copyrighted the patent law tag with its KeyCite system? So what is the difference between, Damien mentioned this is an free and open source taxonomy. What does it mean to be open? Why is it important?
Okay. This is where I try to not go full Richard Stallman on everyone.
Oh,
there's basically, I'm glad we're using the term open and not free. Because initially a lot of people talk about free law and free everything, and then we get into these free as in kittens, free as in beer, free as in speech. So open is the term I prefer. And open is actually a gradient. And I tried, and it's basically asking yourself, how usable is it really? No, how usable is it really? So, as far as, there's many ways that it cannot be open. So again, talking about primary law on the internet should have the most openness about it, but there are various ways that it's not. So it can be in a bad format. So I have seen a state government put a 3,000-page PDF, not even OCR PDF, just a regular PDF on the web, called it, open law, and obviously it's not as usable. There are, have been attempts to copyright both the law or the kind of like pieces that are in it. Again, Jack, who was in the previous panel, was talking about their case law access project. And if you ever look at a Thomson Reuters published reporter, there are there's like the text of the case, which should be public domain, free and open. But surrounding it is a whole bunch of different copyrighted materials. So like the key numbers or the head notes, just added on material that a commercial publisher has added on. So while you can get to the cases for free and it's open, actually getting to it is a little bit more difficult because it's all this copyrighted information around it. And then also just sometimes they charge it or there's logins. Again, the example I said earlier of a commercial publisher putting a website up that has the statutory law for the state of Georgia. And it's like, well, it's here, you can use it, but you can't actually use it because you're not allowed to download it, you're not allowed to make a copy of it, you can't, repackage it and give it away yourself. So it's kind of just like asking yourself, how much can I actually use it? Is there anything standing in the way of using it? If so, then it's not completely open. And again, it kind of varies. So if it's like a work product that you created like the perfect NDA and you want to like let people share it, so you could put a commercial a CC license on it, so no one could like take it and resell it. But if they want to use it, that's fine. But like primary law should have absolutely no encumbrances on it, in my opinion. But often they very much do. As far as like Thomson Reuters copywriting, the key numbers and the key, that does exist. But that's why I'm so thrilled to see Folio Sally in existence, that there will be now an open taxonomy that anyone can use and anyone can plug into. So that's, yeah. So basically asking yourself, can I use it? If there's anything stopping me from using it, either physically, licensing, a login, a price, then it's not totally free and open.
So this has been the windup. Laws, data needs to be organized. Openness is how we organize it in a way that we can all understand and talk to each other. The pitch, though, is, okay, so what does all this have to do with innovation? Either of you can go first if you want.
I'd like to jump in and mention of this. So this is the nature of suit codes has been the bane of many existence because the nature of suit code says that this case is a trademark case. But if you look at the complaint, it's also a trade dress case. This is also a trademark infringement case, also a false designation of origin case. So what if you had a free and open taxonomy of 18,000 tags? Each of us has these. And what if there's a tool that Folio, a nonprofit, is doing to say, if you upload a complaint, you'll be able to say, hey, that's a complaint, Sally tag. And this is a trade dress and trademark and false designation and copyright. And to extract all of those things, make it all free and open source. So not only is the taxonomy, think West key number system, but free and open. Not only is that taxonomy free and open source, but also the method to be able to extract from all the complaints, all the things that matter, all the causes of action. That is also free and open source. Now, once you have that, what if you could be able to have a large language model say, let's summarize this complaint for the trademark portion of it. And then the large language model can create a summary a lot like the Thomson Reuters summary. That is free and open, because if it's created by a large language model, there's no copyright in there. The US copywriters said, hey, if machine created, no copyright. So now all of a sudden you have the West key number system, but free and open source. You have the summaries like the would be in the Westlaw, but free and open source. What kind of cool stuff can we do? Let's find out.
I want you to go a little bit further with that, because when we were walking through the airport together, you were mentioning that what the cost to download Pacer is $1 billion.
That's right. So $2 with a B billion to download every motion, brief, pleading from Pacer. I've told a bunch of federal judges, I said, I've downloaded a bunch of that 2 billion, and I have to recoup my cost to some of the richest law firms in the world. And I said, you know who can't afford to pay me? Poor people. I said, judges, this is an access to justice issue that you judges have created. You can't point the finger to anybody else. This is you charging $2 billion with a B. And that's you that's making me recoup my investment to the richest people and not give this to the poorest people. So imagine, what if Pacer were free? What if that, and Free Law Project is doing a great job in making a lot of Pacer free. What if 100% of Pacer were free? Then there wouldn't be 3 companies in the world with this comprehensive cases, statutes, and regulations, but there'd be 100 or 1,000. Now take all that free data and run Sally across it. All the tags, all the motions, all the causes of action, run essentially summarize all of the key head notes. What kind of world could we live if the law were actually free with a taxonomy that's also free?
So that's to you, Sarah. What does the world look like if if data and the way we organize it are both open?
Okay, so the way I always have been saying about it is open content is the raw material of legal innovation. So if you kind of look for basically when I first started practicing and getting into this, around 2008, there were basically at that time 3 legal research companies, and because you couldn't get to the content, and slowly it became a little bit more available. Now, like there's the Case Law Access Project, and also I guess I should back it up a little bit. So around 2008, the first time I ever heard the concept of data is the new oil and law is data was from Damien's boss, Ed Walters. And I totally believed him because I believe anything Ed Walters tells me. But
Yeah.
I was also just thinking like, oh, we'll maybe get like a better citator out of the deal. Not realizing that just a few years down the line, relatively few years down the line, we would have generative AI and we would have actual plain AI, ways that we could take all this content and make it more usable and find new cool things with it. So what I do for a living, I work for Legal Tech Hub, and we have a directory of legal tech companies. And every day I find a new legal tech company. Most of them now are using Gen AI or LLMs or some sort of AI. And they are taking data, either internal data from a law firm or a legal organization, or public data based on either judicial analytics or case law or statutes or regs, and somehow processing and making a new thing of it. But they absolutely can't do that if they don't have the raw material. So, and it's not even just having the raw material is not enough, because kind of what Damien just alluded to, LLMs need to have some structure there so they know what they're looking at. They know this is a brief. They know what kind of pleading this is. They know this is an NDA. They know these are the various clauses within a contract. And there's a couple benefits to having an open shared kind of language that helps us cross talk to each other, because then all these different tools are kind of based on the same, it's a lingua franca. So it gives us like everyone the same kind of language that they're speaking. So all these tools can play nicely together. And then also just because no one really organizes things in the same way, having an open system allows people to maybe start trying to organize their stuff. There's a company that actually takes the Sally and folio tags and helps you like apply it to your internal data. It kind of is like a push button do it thing, so you don't have to sit there and manually do it. And once you have that structure in place, then you can build upon it, and then more places can build upon it. And again, huge access to justice opportunities here, because as long as we can get this free primary law, because that is very helpful to many of the access to justice needs in the United States.
And to build upon that, data is oil. Ed Walters, who you might know as the co-founder of Fastcase, my boss, and actually Sam Glover introduced me to Ed. Data is oil. We've known that for a bunch of years, but you have to refine it. You have to pipe it to customers. You have to make it into a product, and then you have to get it to market. And that legal oil, that legal data, is cases, statutes, regulations. Those are public oil. And then you also have private oil. That is, you have the settlement agreements, you have contracts, you have the knowledge group within your data set. You used to have 3,000 people in the bowels of Eagan, Minnesota, refining that oil, writing summaries, tagging things up. You don't need thousands of people anymore. You just need large language models who could be able to summarize quite well, thank you. And you can take the Sally tags, and we can tag them up quite well, thank you very much. But then you have to pipe it to customers, either as a website or as a raw data feed. The cost of Claude Code these days is next to zero. Then you have to say, okay, what do you have to build? That's what you all come in. You have to have smart lawyers and law students. You need good product people and good UX people to make it dead simple. Then you have to have trust to be able to figure it out. So the moat is massive. $2 billion is a lot of money to be able to do this. But the moat to refine, close to zero. Because if you're just refining private oil, that's easy. You don't need to pay $1 million to a big company that starts with an H to do that. You can just refine the oil yourself. Piping to customers, next to $0. Small moat on product. That is, there's a little bit to be able to say, is it user-friendly? Is it giving me the things that I need? But what if this moat were gone?
What's the big company that starts with an H?
There's a guy's name that's Harvey. Anyway.
Oh.
I don't like to trash talk my competitors, but what if this were free, this in the red? Then the only game would be on product. Wouldn't that be a great world where the taxonomy is free and the oil is free, and we're all competing on products to make things better, faster, stronger?
Sarah, what's your takeaway from that you want? What do you want people to take away from this about open data, open standards?
Start organizing look at your, like whatever you do for a living, look at your internal data and see if it could maybe be better organized. Because that's the thing, the best time to have well-structured, organized internal data was yesterday. The best day, the next best day is to start doing it now. Because again, like I mean, there are tools that you can just like throw all your unorganized crap at it and it will organize it for you. But you can get a lot more ahead of the game. You can get more squeeze more juice out of these tools if you have a good raw material to begin with that is well organized, that is ready to go. So then the LLM knows what it's looking at and can then come up with more creative ways. Another option too is also, if you're not calling your representatives about other things currently, you might want to ask them to keep making government data more free and open, because we have a very long way to go to make a truly open primary law ecosystem. And there's still encumbrances all over, both on the state and federal level. Don't even get me started on local. That's like even the worst of all. Try to find your local zoning regulations. But again, if you're looking for something to be mad about and to yell at your senators or Congress people about, the open data ecosystem is a good opportunity to do that too.
Nobody is looking for anything to be mad at them about now. We all know, but here's another one.
And to build up on this, we all owe the Harvard Case Law Access Project. We as society owe them a huge debt of gratitude. I mean, that has been a massive launching pad for the Free Law Project and everyone else who is also doing the yeoman's work to be able to do this work. So I would say Harvard, Jack Cushman, you guys are heroes. Free Law Project, you're carrying on the good fight. I think we should all build upon their shoulders to be able to do a cool thing.
Mine, yeah, here. And mine, I think, just is derivative of all of yours. If you are in this room or not, or watching, and you have any influence whatsoever with a court or a governmental agency that is producing legal data, open it up.
And having working for a company that is trying to get the courts to open up the data, the courts look to us as data brokers. Data brokers are historically evil entities that are trying to take private information and be able to do bad things with it. We're not data brokers. We're trying to help access to justice. And so if you're working for a court that says, no, we're going to block, we're going to put up a bunch of captchas to be able to keep the data brokers out, you should think, well, maybe you're keeping the access to justice warriors out as well. So this is a conversation that I think all courts should be saying. If ignorance of, and this is a Mark Lordson case statement that I've been stealing, ideas are uncopyrightable, only the expressions of those ideas are copyrightable. The idea that Mark has said is, if ignorance of the law is no excuse, and it's not, what's the excuse for locking that law behind a paywall? We should keep all that law free. So if you're working for a court that's trying to lock it behind a paywall, please open it up so we can do cool things with it.
Thanks very much. And if you want to continue this conversation, we don't have time for questions, but if you want to continue this conversation, I'll be at the reception. Damien's going to be on a plane. Sarah's in Illinois or Indiana. But I love to talk about this, and I'd love to keep talking about it.
And LinkedIn is always a good place to find me.
Exactly. Thanks, y'all.
Thanks, everyone.
All right.